Om Sadashiva-Samarambham Shankaracharyam Asmadacharya Devi Paramparam Om
Vavatu Shanti Shanti
Vasudevendra Yogindram
Indra
Natva
Jnanapradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattva
Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Hari Om.
Welcome back. I hope you all had a good Diwali.
Yes. Hectic.
Did I start the recording? Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's begin. So in our last class, I hope you remember, we are still on the topic of anatma, what I am not. We finished talking about the prakriya of the three bodies. And then we said we are not these three bodies. And then we looked at the avasthatrayam, the three states of awareness. And we talked about how I'm present in all these three states of awareness. I'm the witness of these three states of awareness. I'm the fourth, which is not a state at all, but that which is present across all these three states of awareness and witnessing them. And now we will talk about another model, the Panchakosha model, the 5 sheaths. So now we will look at a different classification of the same 3 bodies that we already looked at. We are not talking about anything different. Koshas is a functional classification, so just like you might talk about the population in India, you could say there are so many men and so many women, but you could also then divide that same population as per age, or you can say urban or rural population and so on. So this is just a different kind of classification like that. So why this different classification? To address a different kind of confusion. As we said before, we don't just not know our true nature, we have a confusion about it. We say I'm a man, a woman, I'm black, I'm white, and so on, identifying with the body. Hence, we use the prakriya of the 3 bodies to address this confusion. But we also say things like, I am hungry, thirsty, referring to the physiological functions. I might say, I'm blind or deaf, referring to the attributes of the senses. I might say, I'm happy or sad, referring to the state of the mind. Or one can say, I like classical music, or I hate heavy metal music, referring to likes and dislikes. This functional classification of the Panchakoshas will address all these sets of confusion. So this Panchakosha is also called the 5 sheaths. Sheaths meaning cover, and these sheaths correspond to the 5 layers of personality. So let's chant on your page 11. You can unmute yourself. Panchakosha ke
Panchakosha ke
Annamaya Pranamaya
Annamaya Pranamaya
Manomaya Vijnanamaya
Vijnanamaya
Anandamayashcheti. Okay. So the student asks, what are the 5 sheaths? And the author simply replies, the 5 sheaths are Annamaya, which is the food sheath, Pranamaya, which is the vital air sheath. Also, you can call it pranic sheath or energy sheath. Manomaya, which is the mental sheath. This is the physiological layer, the emotional layer. Vijnanamaya is the intellectual sheath. This is the rational layer of the personality. And Anandamaya is the bliss sheath, the source of ananda, relaxation, revitalization. Cheti, this, and that is it. So each of these sheaths is even more subtle than the previous. Only the first sheath, the Annamaya, is visible at all. Others can be perceived in different subtle ways. When you meet a friend, you can probably tell that they are low or high energy that day. You know what kind of emotions that they're feeling. This can be perceivable in a very subtle way. How you might meet a person and perceive how intelligent or rational they are, but that this is even more subtle. So it's as many of you might have seen in part of wedding rituals in India, I think both in South and North India, the bride is shown the Arundhati star. This is because Arundhati was Rishi Vashishta's wife and apparently the ideal wife. So the bride is shown this Arundhati, the star representing Arundhati, to remind her of these qualities. But the important part here is this technique in which the star is shown, it's called Arundhati Naya. So because this star is kind of very dim, the Pandit will first say point to a tree, and then he will point to a branch at the tree, and then he will say, you know, that branch which is pointing to that bright star in the sky, right? So the bride will look at that bright star, and then he'll say, there is a fainter star next to that. And so that's how he will make her see the fainter star, which is the Arundhati star. And this is called Arundhati Naya. The objective wasn't the tree or the branch or even the bright star. The objective was to show the fainter star by using all these as indicators. And Vedanta does the same. You know the body, so the teacher starts with the body. This is the Annamaya Kosha. And Annamaya Kosha is just another name for Sthula Shariram, the physical body that we looked at from another standpoint. So we will find that in this Panchakosha, like I said, the Annamaya Kosha is same as the Sthula Shariram. And when we talked about Sukshma Shariram, we will look at the functional divisions of the Sukshma Shariram, which is Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, and Vijnanamaya Kosha. And the Karana Shariram that we looked at, you will find is same as the Anandamaya Kosha. So continuing on page 11, we'll chant again. You can unmute yourselves. Annamaya Kaham.
Annamaya
Annarasenaiva.
Annarasenaiva
Bhutva.
Bhutva
Annarasenaiva vriddhim prapya.
Annarasenaiva vriddhim prapya
Annarupa pritivyam.
Annarupa prithvivyam
Sorry. Yad viliyate.
Yad
Tad annamaya koshaha.
Annamaya
Koshaha
Stula shariram.
Stula
Shariram.
Someone is asking, where is this book? This was, yeah, you'll find it in the group description. We can send it again later. Virshi. Yes. Right. So Annamaya Kosha is, like I said, same as the Stula Shariram, the physical, the gross body, because it is perceptible to the senses. It is tangible, solid. Annamaya Kosha is a direct result of annam, food, which is consumed. So we are literally what we eat, at least our body is. So when we eat, our body discards what is not needed and only keeps what is needed. And this is called rasa. The father or mother eat the food, which is then converted to seed in the father in the form of the sperm, and as the egg or ovum in the mother. So, and these two are called annarasa. The author says, annaraseneva bhutva. It has come into being, this physical body has come into being only because of annarasa, because the gross body has come into being by joining of these two annarasa, the sperm and the egg. And hence annarasa is called the shrishti karanam, the cause of creation of this body. And after the fetus is formed, the growth of the fetus again happens due to the food, by the food eaten by the mother. So the author says, annaraseneva vriddhim prapya. Having gained growth through this annarasa, the physical body basically grows because of the food. When the baby is born, the physical body again grows with the food that the baby eats. The food, annam, is converted into various minerals, proteins, carbs, etc., which is again collectively called annarasam. Hence, annam is also, the food is also the sthiti karanam, the preservation or sustenance cause of the body. The body grows up till a particular point, and then it starts to decline. The food consumed also decreases, and eventually the body dies and is burnt or buried, and it goes back to the earth, from which new food is again formed. Hence, the body becomes the source of the food for future generations. So this body comes from annam and goes back to annam. The author says, Anna Rupa Pritivyam Yat Viliyate. Viliyate means merges or resolves. Pritivyam into the earth. Anna Rupa because it is the source of the food. Since Annam is the Shrishti, Sthiti, and Laya Karanam, it is called Annamaya Kosha, this physical body. Mayam means product. There is also another meaning for this suffix, mayat, meaning saturated with. For example, if I said jalamaya, it would mean saturated with water. So this physical body is saturated with annam. So hence it's called annamaya kosha. And why kosha? Because it is this sheath covers the Atman. And but we have to understand that whenever we talk about something covering Atman, you have to think of it like the clouds covering the sun, right? So they're not really covering the sun, because how can you even see the clouds? It's because of the light from the sun. So it's as if covering the sun. So that's what we mean when we say these sheets cover Atman. So the Atman is as if covered by Annamaya. When we see food, when we see food out, laid out on a table, when we see an apple or a roti, we don't get confused that this food is us. But when it comes to the physical body, which is also made of food, we associate with this physical body and we say, I'm brown or white, I weigh 50 kilos or 60 kilos or whatever, associating with this body, right? So we're talking about that particular confusion. Tad Annamaya Kosha Stula Shariram. That Annamaya Kosha is another name for Stula Shariram. That's what the author is saying. So this body, this physical body, the author is telling us, is basically food rearranged. Are we this body? Let's look at it. The body changes constantly. We discussed the Shadvikara, the 6 changes when we were talking about the Stula Shariram, the 6 changes that every body undergoes, right? Asti, which was the potential existence, the fetal existence, Jayate, which was the manifest or birth, Vardate, the growth of this body till it becomes an adult body, Viparniyamate, the changing of that adult body, Apakshiyate, the decay, the decline, and Vinashyati, the destruction or death of this physical body. So I was that 2-year-old baby. I am this 30, 40 something year old woman right now. And I will be that old person. The body itself is constantly changing. There is nothing common between that baby and this adult and that old person in terms of the body. But yet I say I, right? So I, the witness, have always been unchanging, but this body is constantly changing. So can I be this body? We also think of ourselves as conscious, as aware, but we know that the body itself is not, right? The body itself is not conscious. So we say my body, so because I can see this body, I'm the observer of this body. I'm the subject and the body is the object. So again, this body cannot be me. So we also saw in the Stula Sariram section that this body is a product of past Janma Karma. So it came into being as a result of past Janma. And this body comes and goes, yet I remain. So can I be this body? This thing made of food cannot be me. So perhaps it's something more subtle. So, and hence we go to the next layer. Continuing chanting. Pranamaya kaham.
Pranamaya kaha.
Pranadyah panchavayavah.
Prana panchavayavah.
Vagadindriya panchakam.
Vagadindriya
Pranamaya koshah.
Pranamaya kosha.
Yes. Okay. So now we're talking about something more subtle than this physical body, the energy sheath or the pranic personality layer. Excuse me. So from the Vedic culture, not really Vedanta, you also have pranic healers, right, who are supposed to be able to see your energy system and correct them to flow for this prana, to flow better, to heal. Yogasanas and Ayurvedic treatments also talk about improving the flow of prana. So the author says, prana dya panchavayavaha. The pranic layer consists of 5-fold physiological functions. So we already saw this as the Pancha Prana when we were doing the Sukshma Shariram. So I won't talk about it in detail again, but if you remember, the Pancha Prana was prana, the respiratory system, the upward moving force, apana, the downward moving force or the evacuatory system, which was the power of removal of waste, excretion, childbirth, menstruation, and so on. Vyana, it is throughout the body, the circulatory system. This is how the energy is distributed through the body. Samana, the digestive power. This is what converts the food into energy. Udana, the reversing system or the emergency evacuation system. When you inject, you take in some toxin, you will vomit. If there's dirt in your eyes, the tear glands fill up and push the dirt out and so on. So these are the Panchavaya. Sorry, Prana, Apana, Dhyana, Samana, Udana, and I missed something.
Samana.
Samana, yeah. Yeah, Samana is there. Okay, right. Okay, so this Panchavaya is what's responsible for the energy in your body, right? This energy in your body is made available through the food we consume, and it's stored, and it's used to do any actions like, like I'm talking to you right now, or if you need to take a walk, for everything you need prana. So this prana is expressed in the form of Kriya Shakti, right? The action, and through the Pancha Karmendriyas. So that's the Pancha Karmendriyas are your hands, legs, your ability to speak, and so on. And so basically the author says, Vak Adi Indriya Panchakam. Vak means speech. So he's using this as an indicator for your 5 karmendriyas. So you add in with Pani, Pada, Payu, Upastaha, which is your like your legs, your hands, and your excretory system, and all these, right? So out of the 17 components of the Sukshma Shariram that you might remember, 10 parts representing the Kriya Shakti are now being talked about in the Pranamaya Kosha, right? So the Annamaya Kosha was the anatomical aspect, and the physiological aspects are the Pranamaya Kosha. So in a dead body, the Sthula Shariram continues, right? You can see the physical body still, but there is no prana. The Pranamaya Kosha has left along with the Sukshma Shariram. So on concluding previously that I'm not the physical body, one might then wonder, what about the life force which pervades this body? Am I that life force? Am I that makes this body alive, the prana? But we can see that the prana is also changing, right? But I am not changing. I am the knower, and the prana is again something to be known. When we look at it, we can see that it is also an object, a more subtle object, but still an object. So then the author continues to clear this confusion, looking at something even more subtle. Is there any question so far in the Annamaya Kosha or Pranamaya Kosha? Okay. Then continuing, Manomaya Kaham.
Manomaya Kaha.
Manascha.
मनश्च
ज्ञानेन्द्रियपञ्चकम्
ज्ञानेन्द्रियपञ्चकम्
मिलित्वा
मिलित्वा
यो भवति
यो भवति
स मनोमयः कोशः।
समन्वयकोशः।
Right. So the student asked, what is the Manomaya Kosha? So Manomaya Kosha is the emotional sheath or the physiological sheath. The author says the main part is the mind. Manomaya represents the Ichcha Shakti. The mind is the seat of all emotions and hence desires. The desires are generated in the mind. That is the Manomaya Kosha. And the Pranamaya Kosha's job is to fulfill those desires through the Kriya Shakti. So the author says, Mana Jnanendriya Panchakam Militva. Militva means combining. But combining the mind with the 5 Jnanendriyas, the 5 organs of knowledge, Yo Bhavati Sa Manomaya Kosha. That which is born is Manomaya Kosha. So we can desire only that we know, right? We cannot have a desire for something that we do not know. And we know things through our Jnanendriyas. So the Ichcha Shakti, the desire to want things, requires the support of the Jnanendriyams. That is the power behind the eyes, nose, tongue, nose, and skin. Marketers, of course, know this very well, which is why when you go to a movie theater, in the interval, might not know it, but they spray the smell of popcorn in the theater so that your Jnanendriyas, the nose smells this popcorn smell, and you're reminded that, okay, now I can go buy popcorn, right? So the mind, which is the thoughts, the emotions, the desires, this personality, this is where many people might think, I am this. We identify certainly with this personality, right? But the mind is also something which is experienced. But I am not what is experienced. I am the experiencer. The mind is also constantly changing. There are supposedly 16,000 thoughts in a day, most of them repetitive and largely useless. So this thoughts are constantly coming and going, and the mind is constantly changing. Even this personality we associate with, the word personality comes from the Greek root persona, meaning masks, because apparently in Greek theater in the olden days, because there were big theaters and they needed a way to carry out the sound, the actors used to carry these big masks which had hidden microphones, and they used to, not microphones, they were basically physical microphones, and they used to talk into these masks which would act as a microphone and carry the sound, right? So the word personality comes from this persona, which means the mask. And just like this mask that the actors carry, this mind is also just a mask, a sheath too. So I'm not this mind, is what Vedanta is telling us. Continuing on page 12 now. Vijnanamah kaha buddhir panchakam
बुद्धि ज्ञानेन्द्रिय
militva
मिलित्वा
यो भवति
यो भवति
स विज्ञानमयः कोशः
स विज्ञानमयः कोशः
So what is the Vijnanamaya Kosha? The intellectual sheath. It can also be, it's a rational sheath or the knowledge sheath. The author tells us that this represents the Jnana Shakti, the power of knowing. In the earlier section, we said that in order to desire something, we must first know it, right? So whatever we desire, we must first know, but everything we know, we don't necessarily desire, thanks to the Lord. So in addition to the mind, manaha, we also have buddhi, the intellect, the discriminative power, which keeps us from desiring everything or chasing everything which comes our way. We might see an ad for a Domino's pizza or a McDonald's, but hopefully by now we know how bad these things are for us, so we don't necessarily desire it or give in to that desire, at least not every time. So that's where the buddhi or the intellect comes in and saves us. So the Vijnanamaya Kosha also shares the Gyanendriyas along with the Manomaya Kosha. So it says, Buddhir Gyanendriya Panchakam Militva Yo Bhavati. So again, combining the intellect faculty with the 5 Gyanendriyas, that is the Vijnanamaya Kosha. And this is the deciding, discriminating power of the intellect, which is exercised, and those desires get refined and we choose which desires to pursue. So the discriminating power of the intellect weighs the pros and cons and helps us decide if a desire will serve us or not. Of course, what is the ultimate refinement of this discriminating power? Can anyone tell me?
नित्यानित्य वस्तु विवेक.
Perfect. Yes, that's correct. And yes, so the ultimate refinement of this discriminating power is viveka, the nitya vastu viveka. So after we previously dismissed the mind, we came to what is even more subtle, which is the intellect. So even what you're trying to understand this class with is your intellect, right? So am I that intellect? Can be the question. But again, the same logic applies. Am I aware of the intellect? Am I aware that that I understand or that I'm confused? If I am aware of it, then it is also an object. And we know that this intellect, it is also changing constantly. There's so many things we didn't know before that we now know. There is much more discriminating power that we might now have than we had before. And all these same negations apply. While this intellect is actually might appear sentient, it is also a borrowed sentiency. It is borrowing this sentiency from you. So what is even more subtle than this intellect? The author will then explore that next. He will look at what happens when I'm in deep sleep, when the mind and intellect were also resolved. but I was still there. So am I that? And continuing, Anandamaya kaham
Anandamaya kaha.
evamevam
Evam.
एवमेव
karana sharira bhutva
कारणशरीरभूत्वा
avidyastam
अविद्यास्त
malina sattvam
मलिनसत्त्वं
priyadi virittim
यादिवृत्तिसहितं
sat
सत्
anandamaya koshah
आनन्दमयकोशः
etat kosha panchakam.
एतत् पञ्चकोशकम्
So the author says evameva, that is in the same manner, karana sharira bhuta avidyasta malina sattvam. So that which is abiding in avidya, in ignorance, in the form of causal body, of malina sattvam, of impure sattva, right? So we talked about the gunas before. Sattva is clarity and purity, and but in the deep sleep state, you're largely under the influence of tamas, and hence there is ignorance. So while the mind and intellect, everything resolves in the deep sleep state, and this resolution might appear similar to nirvikalpaka samadhi, where the mind also resolves in that state too. But the difference is the samadhi state is a sattvic state, right? And in the deep sleep state, you're mostly in a tamasic stage. So hence it's called, the author is saying malina sattvam, of impure sattva. So Anandamaya Kosha is the same as Karana Shariram. So we spoke of how Karana Shariram is the seed form of the Sthula and Sukshma Shariram. And at the time of Pralayam, the destruction of the universe, the bodies go back to that seed form. And we gave Karana Shariram the name of Avidya. But here in this particular prose, the author is using the term avidyasta, which means, it's a technical word which means mula avidya, which is the root avidya. It's the root cause of ignorance. That means. So we all also have this individual level pralayam, this individual level destruction which happens every day in deep sleep. In this nidra, the objective world of shared experiences is not resolved, of course, but it is as good as resolved for us because we have no association with the physical body or the subtle body. There is no mind, no likes, no dislikes, no ahamkara, no individuality. One Swamiji gave this example of this man in the olden days who believed in untouchability. So he goes into a train and he sees an untouchable and he's immediately very agitated and repulsed and keeps his distance. But during the course of the journey, he falls asleep. And when he wakes up, he finds that his head has fallen into the lap of the untouchable. So in the deep sleep state, none of our likes, dislikes exist, right? This whole personality completely resolves. When we are in that Karana Shariram, in the deep sleep state, we have got twofold experiences still. One experience is that of total ignorance. We are unaware of anything. In fact, we are not even aware that we are sleeping. We are asleep. Sleep here doesn't have a present tense. We can say he sleeps or she sleeps, but you can never say I sleep. We can only talk about having slept once we wake up, right? So, and the second experience is that of ananda, of no stress. The second aspect is the happiness, which the authors say is indicating by saying priya adi, priya, etc. So we talked about these three levels of happiness before: priya, moda, pramoda. I think I explained it with that white kurta example, right? When you walk past a shop window and you see a beautiful white kurta you like, you've seen your object of desire. So there is a level of happiness from that. So that is priya. And then you might go in, you try on that kurta, see yourself in the mirror, and your happiness might increase even more. This is moda, coming close to your object of desire, possessing this is moda. And you might finally buy that kurta, like, go home, try it on, go to meet a friend, and they give you a compliment, and you feel even more happiness. That is pramoda, which is the ultimate level of this Vishaya Ananda, which comes from possessing your object of desire. So this gradation of Ananda is only there in Vishaya Ananda, the worldly, any happiness which can be gotten from worldly objects. This is also coming and going. This is also constantly changing. So this Shastric version of this gradation, Priya, Moda, Pramoda, is like, like we might say in English, happy, happier, happiest, maybe, right? So that's what the author means by Priyadi in this verse. So these two states of, that's what represents this Anandamaya Kosha, or this Karana Shariram, is that state of ignorance and the state of bliss or happiness, right? So, and he then ends this by saying, Etat Panchakoshakam, this is the Panchakoshas. So after going through all this, like the Russian dolls taking away one sheath after the other, what do you find inside? Do you find the Atman inside, which is covering the 5 sheaths, right? So it's what is left after removing all these 5 sheaths. At first, it might appear that there is nothing, right? So I'm either no self, as the Buddhist says. When we look very carefully, though, there appears to be, while there appears to be nothing, we see that, did I not experience these 5 sheaths? Did I not observe these 5 sheaths? Even that blankness of the deep sleep, did I not experience it? Who was it who experienced all that? Who experienced all these 5 sheaths, including the blankness of the Anandamaya? So one cannot say I do not exist, because Actually, this is used in Vedantic arguments also, because who's the one saying I do not exist, right? So if a opponent ever asks that in Vedantic arguments, the answer from the Vedantian comes, then, okay, if you say you do not exist, I have no one to argue with. So there ends the argument. So no one can say I do not exist, because one can say, who is it who's saying I do not exist? So it is obvious that I exist. And that is the feeling that we all strongly do have. And but it is just the I. What is the real I that we are trying to find out here? So when we remove all these 5 sheaths and there appears to be nothing, it's because we are looking for an object. It is not the object of seeking. It is the subject itself. It is the one who is seeking. The ultimate paradox of Vedanta is that without the seeking, this Atman can never be known. But till we stop seeking, till we stop being the seeker, it will not be known. But till such time it is known, we must continue seeking. That is what we are doing here right now. So any questions in the Panchakoshas?
Sarispandanaji, can you just repeat this seeking and the seeker? The paradox that you just mentioned. Can you repeat that again for us, please? Thank you.
Sure. So I was saying that without the seeking, so again, let me remind you of the cloud and the sun example, right? So we might say the cloud is covering the sun, but how do you know the cloud is covering the sun? Because it is still because of the light of the sun that you're able to see the clouds. So I was saying the paradox is that we are seeking, who am I? And we are seeking this Atman, but it is not an object. It is actually the subject. So it is the seeker itself. And the paradox is that without this seeking, without being the seeker, without this inquiry that all of you are undertaking right now, you will never really get to know this Atman. You will never really get to know yourself as the Atman, because this inquiry is necessary. Because the inquiry will bring you to Shastra and to a teacher, which will tell you what the true nature is, right? Because what this Atman is not perceivable to any of the senses. So without the seeking itself, it will never be known. This Atman will not be known. But ultimately, if you keep seeking for it, if you continue being the seeker, you will not realize, till you stop being the seeker, you cannot claim yourself as Atman. So till you stop being the seeker, it will not be known. Does that make it a bit clearer?
Yeah, I
Yes.
have something to say, if I may.
1 second. So this Natraji, Nagaraji, is your question clear?
Yeah, I understood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, but of course, now we looked at now the anatma, what is all the things that we are not. right? So we looked at the 11 components of an Atma, or the 3 different classifications of an Atma. And we talked about all that we are not. And now we'll get to the really juicy part, the Atma. And the Shastra will tell us what is the Atma. Yes, someone wanted to make a comment?
Yes, Spandanaji, this is Veer here.
Yes.
I was just thinking that, okay, I mean, one keeps on seeking, and the paradox is obviously very clear. However, the fact is that at the end of the day, what I feel, what I understand, is that you cannot really know the self. You can realize the self. It's like you can see a beautiful sunset or sunrise, but you can't know that sunrise. So you can realize that there's a beautiful sunrise or sunset, and that in itself, allows one to be able to, be what so as to speak creative, or to, exist in existence, right? Because unless one is conscious, and the existence makes no sense at all. So I guess it is just a question of expansion of our consciousness that really makes this quest worthwhile. So the more we realize about ourselves, the more we realize of who we are. So we can have a better and a rocking existence, I guess. I think that's the way I look at it, very simplistically.
Yeah, so it'll be clearer. I mean, there is, of course, limitations to language, but there is also a journey from knowing to being. So what you're calling realization, right?
Exactly.
So, so I'll put it more in Vedantic terms, because we want to be very crystal clear about the language that we use always. Is by the end of this text itself, you will know who you are, right? Because Shastra will tell you, we finished talking about the Anatma, what I am not. And now we will talk about what I actually am, what is my essential nature. So the knowledge will be there with you through Shravanam alone, through this listening, right? So, but the journey from knowing to being is that after Shravanam, a Vedantic student must do Mananam, which is contemplation on the teaching, because I will tell you some incredibly fantastic things about yourself, incredibly beautiful things which might seem hard to believe. And you might think, how can I really be this, all this wonderful things that Shastra telling me that I am? So there will be doubts. So the Vedantic student must go through the process of Mananam, contemplation, to remove these doubts. And after the removal of doubts, you will have a completely doubtless knowledge. So you already have the knowledge, right? So the knowing is done at that point. But yet, we might not experience that benefit of this knowing. We might still be stuck in samsara even after this knowing. We will still be subject to the highs and lows of life, despite the knowing. So to go from the knowing to being, the Vedantic student must then do Nididhyasana, meditation on the teaching, which will remove all these habitual thinking patterns and these personality traits, these vasanas it will address. And that will be the assimilation of this knowledge to claim what Shastra says that I am. That is the realization. That is the being. That is when one stops being the seeker.
So I want to sort of try to summarize what I understand is
Please
that
go ahead.
so there we are trying to separate Anatma from Atma, and by a process of stepwise elimination of what is not Atma, we are expecting to finally reach Atman. the state of Aham Brahmasmi, I guess.
Mhm. Correct.
Is that fair to say?
Yes.
My only question here is, when we are eliminating this, we are using our intellect,
Mhm.
right? So then whose intellect is this that is actually making all these distinctions?
So we are using the process of the intellect. Actually, before answering that, I want to clarify one thing in your summary. So again, whenever we say different from, so we have to remember this, we're not talking about something completely different. We're talking about something distinct from the anatma. So I'm not different from the anatma. I'm distinct from the anatma in the sense that the wave is distinct from the ocean. It is not different from the ocean, right? So just to make that little clarification. And coming to your question of the intellect, yes, we are using the intellect. So, but hopefully my first clarification might help you there, because I'm not saying I'm different from the intellect. I'm distinct from the intellect.
Or
Right.
kind of a subset of
So
the whole.
any intellect that we can talk about also belongs to Atma, right? This whole process of knowing is also possible because only of the blessing of the Atma. And why do we, in this Vedantic inquiry, why are we addressing the intellect? Because the problem only exists with the intellect, right? As we talked about before, and we will talk about much more later, what we are saying is you are this infinite being. You are this infinite, eternal being. So there is no finite action that you can take, right? There is no yoga meditation you can do, or there is no certain amount, like, certain amount of knowledge you can gain to gain this infinite status, right? So it's only possible if you already were infinite. So the only problem is the ignorance, which is making me think that I'm something else limited. So we're only removing the ignorance. And the ignorance exists where? It exists in the intellect. So we're hence addressing the intellect for that.
So as you're explaining, I'm understanding again that Atma Anatma distinction. Atman is obviously eternal.
Correct.
And Buddhi then will, or intellect would be not eternal.
Yes. So that's what, of course, nothing else is eternal. And only Atma is eternal, right? So
Is
the
there a good
Buddhi then,
example? Is there a good example of Buddhi not being eternal?
that's exactly what we talked about. What's happening in your deep sleep state?
Spandana ji, may I
Is your,
say-
sorry, let me finish, please. Yeah. So what is happening in your deep sleep state, Shubhataji? Is your intellect not resolved?
Yeah, to a large extent, I would say. I don't know if it is completely or not, because it comes back as soon as you wake up.
It comes back, but so in your deep sleep state, someone comes and whispers in your ear, if you wake up right now, I will give you $1 million. Right? Would you wake up at that point?
Well, provided your ears are functioning, but they are not.
Yeah, in your deep sleep state, they're not functioning, So
Yes.
you don't have access to your Gyanendriyas. You don't have access to this intellect which can say, oh, I must get up right now to get that $1 million. Right? So your intellect is resolved in that deep
Right.
sleep state. But yet, when you wake up, you know you were asleep. So who was that I who knew I was asleep?
Right. I think Karan Shariram, every time I go over it, I come close to thinking I now understand it, and then I completely become more confused. So I'm going through these cycles right.
It's okay. It is expected. So it is said that anyone who thinks they've understood Maya has not understood it. So a little bit of confusion is fine. It is
Thank you.
expected. Mhm.
Thank you.
But that is why we do these prakriyas, right? So this karana shariram, the deep sleep state, these are all examples of when the intellect, which we all most closely associate with, and even that is resolved. Yes. Viji, you
But
wanted
then
to
that
make
is
it
not even a sattvic state. It is a tamasi state.
correct.
So that is
So
not like ideal bliss.
yeah, no one's going to come out of deep sleep enlightened. So the intellect is resolved in deep sleep, but you're not enlightened after waking up, right? But no one is also, Vedanta also doesn't agree that you're enlightened after Nirvikalpa Samadhi either. So some other philosophies will say that Nirvikalpa Samadhi is enlightenment, but Advaita Vedanta disagrees. It says it's also a state which you come out of, which ends. So that's not moksha. We say it's useful. It's very useful because in that state of complete resolution of everything, when there is no divisions, you can get a glimpse of a very pure reflection of who you are. But it is still not moksha.
Thank you.
Yes. Biji, you had a comment?
Thank you, Spandanaji. I was just the way I look at it is as Buddhi. I look at Buddhi as like like a wave in the ocean. I mean, the wave is on the ocean. So the ocean is perhaps that which we seek. For example, the moksha or beyond that. And as a wave, we are defined. And so the wave continues to, be born and to go back and to be born again, whatever. So a wave is like an identity, but the identity exists upon the ocean, right? So that's how I look at buddhi also. So we can only use the buddhi that we have, okay, as the wave to contemplate the ocean. I mean, that's what we have. And we are of the ocean. So we use that part of the ocean to contemplate the ocean. So for me, I
So
simplify it like that.
Sure. So I didn't quite get your wave example in this context, but yes, um, the intellect is basically
It's an
the
extension of the
instrument.
ocean.
That's okay. So I would simplify by saying that intellect is basically the instrument we have to negate itself.
Yeah, because the wave keeps growing and going down. It is formed and unformed. So it's a movement, right?
Yeah, let's leave that example aside for now because yeah, I mean
Absolutely.
if it's helping you understand, that's okay.
Absolutely. I just thought I'd share it. That's all.
Okay. Any other questions?
I had a little doubt in the sense that we get to understand that our pure self is the Atman, but on a day-to-day basis, like you say, contemplate over it. With the daily struggles, sometimes what happens is you forget that and you get carried away, and to come out of that entire pattern again takes a huge struggle, and then okay, you get a little glimpse of okay, this should be the right direction, and then you get carried away again. So how do you exactly manage with that process?
Which is why this study is a long-term systematic study, right? Consisting of many years. So like we said, this knowledge itself is very simple. It'll be revealed to you in any one text of Vedanta. But assimilating that is a much longer process. There are a variety of confusions which keep coming up, right? Because Acharya Raviji says that, right now, you know you're Mahalakshmi, you know yourself as Mahalakshmi. No matter what I say, I cannot convince you that you're someone else, right? I'll say, no, you're Jyoti. Will you believe it?
Right.
Right? So I can
No.
tell you.
That conviction is somehow very
Yeah, so that
difficult.
conviction that you have that you are Mahalakshmi right now, you need that same conviction that you're Brahman, you're Atman. Someone calls you, Raviji says that someone calls you in the middle of the night and says, who are you? You have to say, I'm Brahman. So the conviction has to be that strong, which is why we go through so many different texts, so many different prakriyas to address all the various confusions till that conviction is there. But just always remember the FIR, like we keep saying, it's not it's not that the hungry man will get satisfied only after finishing a whole meal. As he's eating, his hunger will keep getting satiated. And so is it with this knowledge. As you continue on this journey, you will keep enjoying the benefits. Your FIR will keep improving. So you're still, I think, I don't know how long you've been. Is this your first class, Tattva Bodha?
Yes, Tattva Bodha
Okay.
first class.
Right. So you'll see. So you'll see over 6 months, 1 year, keep measuring your FIR, and you will see that you're enjoying the benefits.
Thank you. Thank you, Swami.
Any other questions? Okay, lovely. So we can end with the closing prayers. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Om Tat Sat. Have a beautiful day, everyone.
Thank you, Spandana ji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskar.